Hey everyone, today we have 23 Apex Legends tips and tricks to help you instantly improve your game. This includes items for Storm Point, Conduit, Ranked, training routines, Easter eggs, and a lot more. Let's get to it. We're gonna start with a big one for Conduit. We need to have a chat about how to fight and play when you do have one on your team. A lot of the time, it's second nature to pop shields after getting cracked, but if you get Conduit's tactical temp shields on you, you now have 25 or so seconds to use those free shields. Popping a battery immediately negates this big bonus and is kind of a waste of your shield resources. You can dive straight into battle or trade shots and continue to fight with the temporary shields. However, if you did stall out for say 10 to 20 seconds, and this is really situational dependent, be sure to apply a battery or cells as the temp shields are soon to wear off and you don't want this to happen mid-fight. Here's a quick look, mention, and tips for a few updated spots on Storm Point that are not the new POIs. Some of Cascade's buildings have been blown up, mainly it's the roof and second floors that did get destroyed. When I was first here, I had no idea what was happening, but you can shoot shots through the open floor in some spots, so take care when around these buildings. Similarly, this is also the case in a couple buildings previously in Jurassic Park. There's again floors in some of the holes here which do allow for a little bit more variety in the way that you do approach these buildings. There's new ways to approach the POI storm catcher. Zip lines were added, and this is actually a big deal for the approach of this POI. Previously, 2 zip lines from the bottom was all that there was, and then there was those side zip lines as well as the side walk-up ramps. These 2 additional zip lines at the front or the back of the building do let you have a lot more play options. You can float up a horizon lift, connect to those zip lines, or you can use those zip lines if you are walking down from Thunder Watch. Also, don't forget the reverse gravity cannon tip as well. You can simply crouch in the corner of this cannon below the storm catcher and get launched straight to the roof. This is absolutely insane if you are getting chased or if you do want to get instant high ground. Backing up these chain spots, we have a few sneaky drop spots you should try out, as these contain either great loot or are positionally located in a powerful way. First is the set of buildings outside of Lightning Rod. There's a new set of cluster of buildings to the southeast of Lightning Rod, and honestly, these are just really great because you can rotate into the rod, or you can go over to Thunder Watch, or you can simply just rotate straight down the mountain, which pretty much no one ever rotates down, which means it is going to be pretty safe. You can land at Jurassic or the center map. Quick rotations to the entire map are right here because you are dead center, which means you are going to have no problem getting ring positioning. You also have a good amount of loot now. Jurassic was revamped, and the bunker to the north of Jurassic honestly has always been insane. There's so much loot in this bunker, enough easily for 3 people on their own, but having the outside areas is pretty good as well. And of course, you can go third party to the pylon, which has a lot of teams landing there right now as well. Season 19 saw the introduction of Conduit, and there's a lot of little tricks to know about her, but we're going to start with the weakest part, in my opinion, her passive savior speed. You want to have Conduit be the scout or the perimeter control legend, as her passive lets you move 40% faster to teammates that are outside of her tactical range. This means you can quickly run back to the team if you are looking around and you do want to regroup. Also, you might want to think of Conduit as the team's mule. She can loot longer and then catch up via her passive, so if someone has to go back to loot more items, maybe you have to revive a player at a beacon that is at an adjacent POI, or you just gotta check on something, make Conduit do all this with that extra speed. Next up, we have a care package PSA and a warning. There's more weapons, as every care package does have a gun now. This means more Kravers, more Prowlers. You need to be very mindful of who you are fighting. I do like that we get to use these fun weapons more often, but it does create a slight power misalignment in the early game, as typically everyone gets stronger later on in game, and when these care package weapons are introduced way earlier than they were previously, you do need to be very mindful of how you are going to approach this. To counter this, you're going to want to use positioning and the pace of your fight appropriately depending on the weapon that you are going up against. So if you are fighting a Prowler, you want to try to keep enemies away. If you are fighting Kraber, you want to get in a little bit closer, as it is harder to use. If you're looking for a ranked legend that optimizes both area control, defensive play to get positioning, aggressiveness to farm limbs, and has a small amount of rotational power, Catalyst is the #1 ranked legend I am recommending for solo warriors and even pre-made teams in some sense. While she saw nerfs to her tactical and ultimate, the #1 tactical tip I can give you is to use objects to your advantage. Quickly hitting walls is going to allow your trap to fall straight down. You don't need to line it up perfectly. Second to this is to be more mindful of your trap placements. Since you only get 2 traps now, you may not be able to combo trap a door and a barricade with her passive. How to get better aim or control of weapons is honestly one of my top 3 questions I do always get behind how to find your main and how do I just get better. I'll have a specific training routine for general play later, but I wanted to give a really easy and nice tip to help you learn recoils of weapons if you are struggling. Practice spraying guns in bursts. Basically, if you can't control, say, the first 5 rounds, then you're gonna have a very hard time controlling 10, 15, 15, or so on. So practice in bursts, spray 5, get the feeling, spray another 5, get the feeling, and keep doing this, then move on to 10, then move on to 15. You don't need to learn everything at once, and this muscle memory or consistency will be very helpful as it lets you focus and learn on what you are actually doing rather than spraying and praying. Going back to Conduit, I have a couple things in regards to her ultimate, but first is a tip as to its placement or application. I want to recommend something I am calling the Flying V. Basically, if you look straight down when you use her ultimate, the barricades get placed in a V-shaped cone in front of you. You can use this to better dictate how you want to control an area. This allows for a more centralized control of a specific spot, whereas normal placement of the horizontal line is good for blocking off certain directions. You can also slightly look up from the ground to place the ultimate V a little more dispersed if needed. Conduit is still everywhere as she is brand new, but if you want ways to counter the ultimate, there's a couple things you might not have thought of. You probably did think of already using Crypto's EMP to break apart the barricades, or using Watson's pylon to stop canisters from getting placed around it. However, a sneaky counter is both for Rampart and Newcastle. The fully built amped walls will let you break into the dome or the fields, and as will Newcastle's mobile shield. They won't always be useful, but placing these abilities down if you have nowhere to go can save or extend your life. Season 19's weapon meta did not have a ton of changes in terms of viability, but there's one top dog I do want to mention, and this is the Havoc. Previously, when you had the turbocharger on, your gun did 1 damage less per shot. However, this was removed, and you are now going to have full damage with a Turbo Havoc. Why this gun though? The recoil is insane for an assault rifle. It is pretty difficult to use, but if you want to think of this weapon as a hybrid of that closer side of mid-range to close range, try using it almost like an SMG, and you can go crazy as this thing has a 36 round level 3 mag, which is so good for a weapon that has this TTK and DPS. If you are looking for a little extra lore on Stormpoint, the new POI, the Pylon, is named after Watson. It is her POI. She even has her own room in this POI on the 2nd level. Check it out for some Nessies and some cool hints as to Watson's background. Linking together with the previous information is actually a little tip to get the secret Nessie champion screen. If you win a game with a Nessie in your inventory, such as the ones found at the Pylon, you can get this alternate and pretty hilarious champ screen. I got this on accident. Don't remember picking up a Nessie, but I was at the Pylon earlier in that game. On Stormpoint, if you want some guaranteed loot, there's a couple spots you should consider to get this advantage, mainly in terms of armors though. The first is the center pills at the mill. Nearly always there is going to be a purple in these loot pills. If not, there's going to be a couple blue armors in here as well. The remainder of the mill is also densely packed with loot, which is pretty nice. Just south of here, you're going to find a cave between the mill and Cenote Cave. In here are some loot pills, and more times than not, you're going to have a blue and purple armor in here as well, which is nice because rarely anyone does go here. And lastly, I landed at the center of Watson's the Pylon, and there was a purple armor and 3 gold knockdowns, all on the same level, that top level. Loot here is also crazy packed. Definitely look here if you want a lot of loot. Everyone wants to be that movement warrior, but in reality, that isn't really needed. So the question is, do you prioritize learning movement tech or learning positioning? The simple answer is positioning every time, with some basic movement, having the right position to get big damage or hold enemies, and then capitalize it on with some basic movement. This for me is going to be edge sliding. You get big damage, you get that speed boost of that edge slide, you can go right in and finish up that enemy. If you have decent map awareness, you can chain edge slides together, but this does come in time as you do need to have a pretty good understanding of the terrain that is around you. We see flashy streamers and creators doing these crazy movements, but if you have positioning and solid aim, you are going to be able to win the majority of your one-on-ones. Movement won't help you elim players if you can't shoot. Switching it back to Conduit, we have some big things that revolve around her tactical, which in my opinion is what you use Conduit for. For one, you can use it on yourself. You don't need a weak teammate. You only get 65 shields, and it is slower to apply to oneself, but it's still useful. 2, the icons that are on that player, they do have a meaning. Gray means they're full, yellow means they're partially weak, and red means they are very weak or out of shields. This is critical for the mixtape as you can still support the team, plus you don't need to take eyes off the center of your screen if you do know what these icons are. And 3, you don't need to look at a friendly teammate when you start to use attack. You can just say activate it and then pan across the screen until you find someone, and then as soon as the icon pops up, this means they are going to start getting the shields and that ability's effects. Stormpoint's Variant's revamp is going to see us playing this map for quite some time. There's a few very basic but absolutely critical things to know about how you should play this map. Knowing these things is going to make your games easier or harder depending on what you want to do, and most don't even realize it. This revolves around downhill versus uphill play. My suggestion is for you to always land somewhere parallel or just under and north of command center. This means you're always going to have high ground, and you will be going downhill if the zone goes south, and if the zone does go north, then you already have really good positioning. Also, if you have Valkyrie or an evac tower, your rotations can be massive and much more useful than trying to rotate uphill, battling poor position nonstop. Even right here, I am showing myself launching over 1,000 meters with a singular Valkyrie. Be mindful of this in ranked, especially when your position to the ring is very important to get top 5 and wins in those promo games. Season 19's rank system is pretty hardcore, not necessarily for the right reasons with that skill rating and whatnot, but when it does come to the promo system, it's critical to play it smart and safe. I highly encourage you to never random fill or solo queue ranked, and hop into my community Discord to find others to play with. It will make your ranked experience so much more pleasant and your overall Apex experience so much better. You can also ask me any questions that you might have. I have 2 ranked dream team recommendations based on what you might want. Ultimate placement combo, since placement is king when it comes to season, or we do have a team that is a little bit more flexible, having support across the board and really some interesting playmaking to keep the entire team alive. First is going to be Valkyrie or Horizon, and then Catalyst and Watson. This is the ultimate amount of control between Watson and Catalyst in buildings, and Horizon lets the team get the optimal positioning as well, and it lets the whole team not be completely useless in combat. You can also swap out Horizon for Valkyrie if you want the ultimate rotation team, as you can just fly from spot to spot and quickly fortify up with Catalyst and Watson. Next, we have Newcastle, Conduit, and Bangalore. We have a lot of flexibility here with smoke, shields, and team heals with the temporary shields, barricade ult to control engagements. This is a more balanced team who isn't really looking to overplay holding spots, and you can do some fortifying with Newcastle's ultimate. Bangalore's ultimate as well is good to gain positioning. Remember that ranked positioning in winning games is going to be the #1 priority. This is really what you want to go for. Speaking of Bangalore though, for the life of everything, to the new bangs out there, be very mindful of your smoke placement. Blinding your vision to everything that is around you isn't helping. Try to smoke sight lines or smoke enemy positioning first. This will let you still be aware, as smoking yourself closes yourself off to everything that is around, and this lack of knowledge or intel is going to be a huge problem. Since you do come back with weapons and gear now, respawning in hot areas and during a third party is actually crazy. Friendlies flying in from above, guns ablazing, all while the 2 other teams are going at it, really just means very easy cleanup, and I don't think it'll be too long till we have some sort of nerf to the respawns. Since Wraith's passive had a tweak or buff of it hopefully working to trigger a warning so you don't get Krabered in the face, I figured a quick tip for Wraith's portal would be good, as I find it's one hardly used or known. This is the portal closeout. You can activate a Wraith portal, and if you end the portal on top of an unopened loot pill, upon opening, the portal will disappear. This can be very nice if you are getting chased and you don't want enemies to follow you through the portal. If you want to take Apex Legends a little bit more seriously and you want what I would do to improve the fastest, this can be both thought of as a catch-up if you are new, or a way to push yourself further. There's 2 main things I would look at. I would start off my days with 10 minutes in the range, turn on stats in the dynamic timer to help track your progress and regulate your time. Spend 2 minutes doing each of the following. For the first set, practice tap firing between the signs. This gets both accuracy and speed and target acquisition built. Second is to practice hip firing the moving dummies. Third is to practice 1 mags, and fourth set is to combine the previous 3. And then for the 5th final set, practice with a gun that you do not typically use or something that is non-meta, so you can get some experience in on these less used weapons. All it takes is 10 minutes. You do this 2 to 3 times a week and you're going to be farming. Second of this is, if you want to take it a little bit further, is to spend an hour or 2 only playing mixtape. If you do this, you're going to become a literal aim botter. You'll get 20, 30 times more fights than you would if you are just playing the Battle Royale, and your gun skill will become so much better, as well as your specific in-game fighting, timing, and understanding. In a perfect world, I would do this 2 to 3 times a week, but often I don't have the time. If you can't afford the time, just do the range in 1 controller or TDM game before hopping into your matches. Remember that nothing great does come easy. If you want more ways to improve, check out this video right here for over 100 tips. Hit that like button, sub for more, and as always, happy gaming, legends.